So, hello everyone, thank you for coming, particularly in the difficult circumstances. I think we all agree it's been a great turnout given everything that's going on. So as mentioned from Darktrace, who's heard of Darktrace actually? What? Fantastic, okay, super. So what we're going to talk through today is exactly what we're experiencing with regards to the changing threat landscape, how we're seeing that, why it's a problem, and ultimately how we're addressing that problem and finding a solution to that. Now, don't want to go into this. Now it doesn't want to work. No, like this. Don't want to go into this too much at all, but obviously with us saying that we're seeing a lot of stuff and we're seeing the landscape change, I want to give you a little bit of an understanding around a background of Darktrace, so you have an idea of how we're seeing this stuff and why we have the ability to know how it's changing. So we were founded in 2013. Everything we started with back then and are doing now is based upon artificial intelligence algorithms. We have built that up from the ground, and we were one of the first, if not the first, actually doing that. And since then we've had a really successful 6 years. But to move away from the marketing-y stuff, essentially what happened 6 years ago was a group of cybersecurity experts from GCHQ and MI5 were sitting in their jobs at the cutting edge of technology and cybersecurity and constantly seeing these sophisticated cyber attacks bypassing traditional security tools because of the approach they were taking. And essentially they thought to themselves, well, something isn't right here. We're far too reactive in the way that we're approaching cybersecurity. There has to be a better way that we can do this. And they teamed up with a group of Cambridge mathematicians, and they said, is there any way that we can start to look at utilising algorithms, artificial intelligence to create a platform that can take a new approach to cybersecurity? And essentially off the back of those conversations, they came up with one principle and three main objectives, and these still stand true today. And they sort of go against the common misconception that Darktrace are solely a cybersecurity tool that is utilised to stop sophisticated threats. Of course, that is one of the main things that Darktrace do because of the approach, but ultimately it's just as valuable from the perspective of the sort of approach that we're taking to look at us as something that is trying to automate your security processes for you in that instant response stage. So instead of you having to detect, investigate, and respond, we're trying to cut out most of that time for you, providing the detection capabilities across a whole range of risk vectors, pretty much all risk vectors, and then actually investigating for you, bringing you the information that you need to start your remediation. So the principle was essentially, can we or will we gather data from a number of different data sources, so your physical network, your cloud, your SaaS environment, your email, and we'll use artificial intelligence algorithms to analyze and correlate the connections that are taking place between different IP addresses sitting within these buckets, and utilize that information from those correlations to be able to secure the enterprise against cyber attacks. And the three objectives of this principle were to reduce and improve detection time, reduce and improve response time, and reduce and improve interpretation time. And after we've gone through what we're seeing, and we jump into Darktrace's approach, you'll start to see exactly how we have done just that over the last 6 years. So I don't really like this part of the presentation because I feel like I'm preaching to people that know about cybersecurity more than I do. But for the sake of anybody that's not in the loop, just going to take you through a few things that we're starting to see more and more of, as well as what we're starting to expect imminently in the future. So everybody knows there's being a paradigm shift in the cyber landscape. The threats are changing. To sort of simplify it, in my opinion, there's two massive changes that are taking place all of the time now. One of them is internal to the organisation, and the other is external to the organisation. So internally, we've got all the buzzwords. So digital transformation, digitalisation, you name it, you're moving to cloud, you're using SaaS products, you've got an expansion of IoT devices, and 5G is on its way as well. And essentially what's happening off the back of this is we're seeing your attack surface go from this, which is very easy to control and understand, to this. So you've got all of these points of vulnerability and compromise for the attackers to go after. So your jobs are becoming more difficult. You need more special skills in these areas such as cloud to actually secure these enterprises. And ultimately there is a shortage of these skills. So what ends up happening in most organizations is you've got a physical, or not a physical, but an on-premise security specialist managing your cloud security. But that's like getting somebody who drives a car behind the wheel of a plane. Yes, fundamentally it's the same thing, but there's so many sort of detailed differences between them, it's very difficult to accomplish effectively and be sure that you are managing the risks of that in the right way. So your jobs are becoming harder, and it's becoming harder to get people that can actually do them effectively. Externally to the organization, we've got attackers that are sophisticating every single day. So new strains of ransomware, malware webs on the dark web now, malware labs on the dark web now, where you can go and buy a strain of malware that has never been seen before, doesn't have a rule of signatures, and then you can try and execute that on an organization, and it will get straight past the legacy tools because it hasn't been seen before. We're seeing they're becoming more stealthy, they're hiding within the noise of the network, and they're also becoming faster and faster and faster. So they're becoming better, more sophisticated, your jobs are becoming harder, so ultimately it's becoming a race to see whether they can get in before you can stop them, and whether you can actually stop them effectively before they manage to do anything within the network or within a cloud environment, for example. What we're expecting to see imminently is something called offensive AI. So this is where the attackers are going to start actually leveraging artificial intelligence to conduct the attacks on your network. So rather than just a machine spin ransomware that is still programmed to just work in a certain way and try to find its way to the interesting data, offensive AI is going to be able to actually make smart decisions itself once it has actually been released into the wild. So if you think about an attacker, what he's thinking to do is, okay, how am I getting into this network? How am I moving? What am I looking for? How am I going to find that? And how am I going to evade the security controls whilst I try to do all of that? An offensive AI strain of ransomware is going to be able to do all of that. It's going to be able to change course while it's on its attack. So let's say it bumps into something, or it sets off an alarm within the network. It can mold and change itself because it's educated to do that, it's artificial intelligence, and stay hidden within the network to continue its attack. Most importantly, it's moving at a ridiculous speed. So even if you do get a detection, the matter of fact is that it's most probably going to have got hold of some of your data and managed to exfiltrate that before you can actually respond. Now, this is obviously different in different areas of the network, but to make it relevant to a problem that pretty much all security teams seem to be facing, we're going to take a little look at phishing emails. Now, I'm sure you've all seen one of these, not just in a corporate environment, but in your personal world. This is a very, very poor phishing email, something I like to call lazy. This attacker hasn't got the spell check. It's very obvious up here that this is fake, and look, it's pretty generic. There's been no internal reconnaissance beforehand. There's no social engineering here to make it specific to the person that's receiving it, and come on, it just looks dodgy, doesn't it? So most likely the attacker is just starting his criminal career at phishing attacks, etc., and that's probably not going to get past your traditional security perimeter. With AI, and I mean even without AI we're starting to see more of these, but with AI, this is what phishing attacks are going to start to look like, more and more. Now, to me, I can't see anything that screams out, this is an attacker trying to breach my network. You've got a very believable email address with a name, spoofing attempt. It all looks legitimate. It's been sort of socially engineered to the person that it's being sent to. Everything looks completely legitimate. And there's nothing there that is telling you that you shouldn't be clicking on that link. So I think you'll all agree with me in saying that if an employee in your organisation clicked on this, you probably wouldn't really be saying anything to them off the back of it. And the problem with this is, with AI, bringing these sort of things through to your inboxes, it's going to be on a larger scale. There's going to be spear phishing campaigns now where they're actually imitating the language of the employee that you're receiving it from. Perhaps they're putting videos in there that are completely deep fakes. Ultimately, it's sophisticating and getting harder and harder to spot when these phishing emails are actually coming through. And the problem is, a lot of them have never been seen before. So any traditional security approach that is taken, there has to be a victim zero. So I'm sure most of you know this already. The way that a traditional approach is taken is it will sandbox an email, and it will analyze that against everything that it knows to be bad in its huge data set across its entire customer base. But when something new comes in, and that doesn't flag up as bad, 1, 2, 3, 4, however many people are going to receive that type of email that isn't going to be stopped before it's flagged to the vendor and they update their rules and signatures. So no matter what you put on the environment, there's always that element of risk. And I mean, within a security profession, or within a security team, the ultimate goal is to reduce risk as much as possible. So what we've looked to do is take a completely new approach, which essentially is modelled on the human immune system. So your human immune system understands self or DNA for each unique individual. Everybody's body is completely different, and different things happen within it. Your immune system understands that, and so anytime something changes or something manages to get through that initial layer of defense, it's going to flag an alert to the brain saying, this is strange, you might want to take a little look at this. We haven't seen this before. The brain will then conduct an investigation, and it will respond to that accordingly without you, the individual, having to do anything at all. So we're doing something extremely similar. What we do is, from all of these different environments, your cloud, SaaS, IoT environments, email environments, is we passively ingest all of the raw traffic, right? And we begin to learn and understand the DNA of your specific business. So what connections are taking place between which IP addresses, at what time of day, for how long. So instead of understanding what is going on that's bad outside, we learn what your business looks like. And the power of that is that when an attack occurs, no matter how subtle it is, no matter whether it's been seen before, how sophisticated, how fast it's moving, something, no matter how small it is, has to change. And because we understand your business, we can alert you to that change in real time. So as soon as it happens, your security team is going to know about it. So that is the first part of what our AI is doing, and that's called the enterprise immune system. So reducing and improving detection time. The second half of the immune system is something that we released around 8 months ago called Cyber AI Analyst. So we didn't want to just alert you to it and then make you have to investigate to get all the information that you need to start remediation. So we've released the capability whereby we can start actually investigating these threats for you as an alert comes in. So let's say you get an alert, it says something like potential lateral movement or anomalous lateral movement, SMB writes to certain devices. What the AI analyst will then start doing is it will start analysing that alert and correlating any other connections around that device during that period of time, asking questions such as, is there anything else that this device is doing that would sort of make sense that there is some sort of attack going on in progress here? And essentially what it does is it either says, no, from the looks of this, this is just abnormal activity, but it doesn't seem to be an in-progress threat, or it says, actually, this is malicious, the security team needs to know about this, so I'm going to correlate all of the data that I can get that I believe necessary for them to start remediation, and I'm going to present that to them in a digestible format. So, reducing and improving interpretation time. Now, whilst all of this is happening, and this is all artificial intelligence, so it's machine speed, this is happening within seconds, and the report will be produced within minutes. The second half of our capability, the future of cybersecurity, autonomous response, is providing a snapshot investigation itself to understand whether this is an in-progress threat, and if so, whether it needs to be responded to before a human can actually interact with it. So, for example, SMB writes, we see some potential command and control behavior, for example. It goes, SMB writes, maybe a network scan, command and control behavior, I've seen enough, this is moving fast, I'm going to step in and I'm going to cut that connection off to prevent any compromise from spreading from the device that's initially become infected. Now, there's other tools that can respond to things, quarantine devices, block connections. The key to what we're doing here is we're taking that understanding of your business and what each device within your business does, and we're using that to let the artificial intelligence take an educated and proportionate response to what it's seeing. So it's not just seeing network scan, oops, quarantine device. It's seeing network scan, what connections on this device are actually abnormal for this device, because those are the ones I need to cut off to prevent the attack. So there's no interruption of day-to-day operations on this. It only takes the action that it deems necessary to secure the business. Now, obviously, as we mentioned, or as I've mentioned, every business is completely unique. Everyone is different, so you use this in different ways. Some organisations, for example, might have big compliance policies in place where employees aren't meant to be accessing Dropbox. So they'll have autonomous response turned on. So anytime anybody tries to access Dropbox, that connection is prevented. Some might only have it on at certain times of day. So some might have a 30-man SOC team that's monitoring the network, utilising Darktrace to actually look at the alerts, investigate and respond to them as they come through. So they'll only have autonomous response turned on in the evening. Others might have developers that are constantly doing weird and wonderful things. You don't want any connections being cut off for them, so they'll only have autonomous response turned on in certain parts of the network. Is that all clear? Yeah? Fantastic. So that's essentially the foundations of what we're doing and how we're actually responding and reacting to this increasingly changing cyber landscape. I'm very going to quickly, because I don't think I have too long left, 2 minutes, talk you through a short demonstration of this to show you how it actually looks and why this works the way that it does. If I can come out of there. So this is what Darktrace actually looks like in your environment. All of this is taken from the customer, so you can see what we're analysing for this customer, where the subnets are that we're analysing, and then all of the alerts that are being sent through to you when that anomalous activity is taking place. Now, I'm not going to spend too long on this at all, but I do want to show you a quick example where we'll actually look at exactly how Darktrace is noticing that something strange is happening on your network and then responding to it effectively. So I've just clicked into a specific alert. What we're going to see with this alert is we're clicking in, we're taken back to just before the alerts have fired, so we have the ability to then watch this back in real time. I'm going to click on the device event log, which is going to open up a visual understanding of every connection that has taken place between this device and other devices on the network, and I'm going to click play on the playback function so we can start to watch as this unfolds over the next minute or so. Now, to give you a bit of context, because it's going to happen very quickly, what happens here is a phishing email gets through into the inbox of an individual called Angela Darling. She just so happens to click on it. A fast-moving ransomware is executed. It starts trying to connect to a number of different servers, as you can see here, trying to find some data, enumerate some files, and exfiltrate it from the organization. We will then see Antigena alert to this, respond to it, and then identify the source of this compromise. So to very quickly take you back, you can see here it was executed at 9:05. Within the next second, it's attempted to make all of these different connections to these IP addresses, so an extremely fast-moving strain of ransomware. No human team, I would imagine, are able to actually stop this in this period of time. It then finally connects to a mail server, starts navigating around the different documents, trying to find sensitive files. At that point, 8 seconds later, Antigena takes action, enforces the normal pattern of life for this device, preventing all of these connections, or any servers from being accessed, any of this data from being encrypted. It then goes on to identify where the source of this compromise have come from, finds that it is within a link in an email to Angela Darling. It then starts scanning the entirety of your email environment to find similar emails, finds those similar emails, pulls them from the inbox, and has not only stopped the compromise from spreading from the initial infected device, but prevented that compromise from occurring anywhere else on your network. Just a very quick example. We are out there with a stand, so more than happy to take you through this in far more detail if you'd like to come over and speak to us. But ultimately, with time pretty much up or over, want to very quickly open it up for any questions.
I don't think we've really got time.
In that case, come over to the stand.
Do go through with Darktrace. It blows my mind every time I see this. But the technology's evolved so much. I think I started working with you pretty much when you opened in Cambridge, yeah. And it's just growing. And this is the only people I've seen who actually do something that is very close to proper intelligence as opposed to just clever machine learning and some marketing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, we're very short.